Microsoft spent more than $20 billion building Xbox. Then it spent nearly $70 billion buying Activision Blizzard. And now Xbox owns more studios than at any point in its history. Its games reach more players than ever. Its ecosystem stretches across consoles, PCs, phones, tablets, cloud servers, and increasingly platforms that don't even belong to Microsoft. And yet, Xbox is talking about a reset. Not after shrinking. Not after abandoning gaming. After becoming bigger than ever. How does that happen? Because at first glance, this story makes no sense. Most struggling businesses have obvious problems. They lack customers, they lack scale, they lack investment. Xbox appears to have the opposite problem. It has scale, it has content, it has infrastructure, it has one of the largest technology companies in the world behind it. And yet executives are discussing margins, profitability, restructuring, layoffs, studio closures, and a reset. That last word matters, because companies usually talk about resets when something isn't working. The mystery is figuring out what. This is not a story about Xbox failing to invest. In many ways, it's the opposite. Xbox may have invested more aggressively than almost anyone in gaming. The question is whether, in the process of making Xbox bigger than a console, Microsoft weakened the reason people bought Xbox consoles in the first place. And if that's true, it could explain why Xbox became larger than ever, while the Xbox platform became less essential than ever. To understand that possibility, we need to go back to a much simpler era. For most of modern gaming history, the rules were straightforward. If you wanted Nintendo experiences, you bought Nintendo hardware. If you wanted PlayStation experiences, you bought a PlayStation. And if you wanted Halo, Gears of War, Forza, and the broader Xbox ecosystem, you bought an Xbox. The hardware wasn't merely a box. It was a gatekeeper. Access mattered. Exclusives mattered, platform identity mattered. People built friend groups around ecosystems, digital libraries accumulated over years. Players developed loyalty, not because they loved corporations, because switching carried friction. The result was simple. Every platform had a reason to exist. Every platform had a reason to be chosen. And for decades, that was the equation. Then Microsoft started pursuing a different vision. One that, on paper, looked extremely logical. Instead of focusing exclusively on selling consoles, Microsoft began focusing on expanding Xbox itself. Not the hardware, the ecosystem. Game Pass arrived. PC integration deepened. Play Anywhere reduced barriers between devices. Cloud gaming emerged. Xbox began appearing on screens that weren't televisions. Then came the acquisitions. Bethesda, ZeniMax, Activision Blizzard, one deal after another expanded Microsoft's gaming footprint. Each acquisition moved Xbox further away from being a console business and closer to becoming something larger, a gaming ecosystem, a service, a publishing platform, a destination. At first glance, it looked brilliant. Traditional console competition had limitations. You could only sell so many boxes, only reach so many households, only grow so much. An ecosystem had no such limits. Theoretically, Xbox could reach players everywhere, on console, on PC, on mobile, through subscriptions, through streaming, through cloud infrastructure. The vision was ambitious. More importantly, it wasn't irrational. Many analysts viewed it as forward-thinking. Why fight for hardware market share when you can own the relationship regardless of where people play? The logic was compelling until a subtle question started appearing. If Xbox exists everywhere, what exactly is the Xbox console for? At first, the answer seemed obvious. The console remained the best way to access the ecosystem. Nothing had fundamentally changed. But over time, the edges became blurrier. Xbox games appeared on PC. Cloud became more important. Subscriptions became more important. Hardware became only one entry point among many. Then another shift occurred. Microsoft started bringing more Xbox titles beyond Xbox hardware. Some releases that once would have been considered platform-defining began appearing elsewhere, and suddenly the question became harder to ignore. If Xbox games are increasingly available beyond Xbox, what is the reason to buy the hardware itself? Notice what makes this question uncomfortable. It isn't an argument against Game Pass. It isn't an argument against cloud gaming. It isn't an argument against acquisitions. In fact, those initiatives may all be successful, which creates the paradox. Because if Microsoft's strategy is working, the platform question becomes even more important. And to understand why, we need to consider the strongest possible defense of Microsoft's approach. Xbox generates enormous revenue. Game Pass is a real business. Activision adds tremendous scale. Cloud gaming has long-term strategic value. Cross-platform publishing increases reach. The industry itself may be evolving beyond traditional hardware battles. All of those points deserve to be taken seriously, because they may be correct. Gaming no longer exists in the same world that created the original console wars. Consumers increasingly expect flexibility. Ecosystems matter, services matter, accessibility matters. Viewed through that lens, Microsoft's strategy appears less like surrender and more like adaptation. Maybe the future belongs to ecosystems rather than devices. Maybe the old console model is becoming obsolete. Maybe Microsoft recognized that reality before everyone else. And if that's true, something else becomes difficult to explain. Why does Xbox still seem under pressure? Because while the ecosystem expanded, uncomfortable financial signals continued appearing. Hardware sales declined significantly. Revenue trends, excluding major acquisition effects, became less impressive than many expected. Margins remained surprisingly thin relative to the scale of investment. Layoffs occurred, studios closed. Internal discussions increasingly focused on accountability, profitability, and restructuring. Then came the word that changed the story. Reset, not growth, not expansion, reset. And that's where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Xbox owns more content than ever, has more reach than ever, has more players than ever, has more infrastructure than ever, has more studios than ever, yet leadership still sees a need to reset the business. Why? What exactly is missing? At first glance, the answer might seem obvious. Growth, profitability, execution. But what if it's something else? What if the thing Xbox needs most isn't scale? What if it's necessity? Historically, Xbox needed reasons for consumers to choose Xbox, not gaming in general. Xbox specifically, exclusive experiences provided those reasons. Platform identity reinforced those reasons. Ownership carried meaning. You weren't merely buying access to games, you were buying access to an ecosystem that couldn't be replicated elsewhere. But as Microsoft's strategy evolved, something interesting happened. Xbox became easier to access. At the same time, the Xbox console became harder to justify. Those developments are not identical, and they may not move in the same direction. The ecosystem can become stronger while the platform becomes weaker. The business can become larger while the hardware becomes less essential. The player base can grow while the console's unique purpose becomes less clear. That possibility sits at the center of modern Xbox. Because Microsoft's biggest achievement may also contain its biggest risk. The company succeeded in making Xbox larger than itself, beyond hardware, beyond the living room, beyond traditional platform boundaries. But every step that increased accessibility carried a trade-off. Every step that expanded reach reduced exclusivity. Every step that made Xbox available elsewhere reduced scarcity. Every step that made the ecosystem larger raised the same question: why buy an Xbox? And that question matters because consoles are not merely devices. Historically, they were anchors. They created loyalty. They concentrated spending. They reinforced platform identity. Once the hardware becomes optional, the relationship changes. That doesn't mean Microsoft made a mistake. The answer remains uncertain. One possible future is highly optimistic. Xbox becomes the first truly platform-agnostic gaming ecosystem. Hardware becomes secondary, subscriptions, publishing, cloud infrastructure, and services become primary. The business grows stronger than ever. Another possibility is a hybrid model, where Xbox continues expanding while rebuilding selective reasons.